Hi everyone. So today we have Luke Burrows, who I still remember how we met. So we met. So I think I commented on something, said I wanted to start a podcast. I think I want to start a podcast, and then you commented I should or something like that. And then I went to
Okay.
reach out to you, and yeah, just started to talk and be friends, which is super cool. And it's just like so unexpected that now at the end I did start a podcast, and finally like it had the good idea, like the idea too. So super, like it's just so. Oh, sorry, but it's just so funny how just it all just turned out. Just very interesting. But so in this podcast is mainly I interview like two different groups of people. So people who are already taking action towards what they want to do, like you, and to understand like the mindset behind it and everything, to encourage someone who it'd probably be the old me, just like listening to your story and how you had the courage to do what you do. The old me would be like, wow, I'm really inspired and I'm going to take action. So I'm sure there's someone listening who would feel the same, and would love to listen to your story and be inspired to take action. And then I also interview other people where they aren't taking action but they want to. It's like this is like a safe place for everyone to like dream as crazy and as big as they want to, and like no one's going to judge them, and we're just going to keep talking about these weird or crazy goals, and then like think about how it's possible and think of how we can like break it down to action. And yeah, it's just a chill, fun, all about being yourself. Like if you swear, swear. If you don't. But yeah, so can you tell everyone about your story and how you got started?
For sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on. So yeah, my name is Luke Burrows. I'm 24, here from the UK, and I'll try and keep the story short and sweet, and that the short version anyway. So kind of how my entrepreneurial journey and just diving into personal development began, and then like you say, starting to take action towards more of the things that kind of I wanted to pursue. So I dropped out of college when I was 18. I think I was, because at the time I was studying IT, so computers and that. The first year was okay, but the second year I felt like I wasn't learning anything or anything new. So yeah, I ultimately dropped out. Took 6 months kind of out of it and out of everything really. I was only working like a part-time job. So yeah, I took 6 months out, kind of really had that time to think about what I wanted to do. Decided, actually I want to run my own business, but super young, knew nothing about, like this now, like podcasting or online world or online marketing or kind of anything. And so, I thought it'd be a good idea to get a business apprenticeship, to go into business, learn the ropes and everything. So got one, and the first probably 3 months or so was okay, like pretty good. And then it started to go downhill because I wasn't really learning anything what I thought about business ultimately. I always describe it as like I basically became like that admin guy, like just go in, like it's just like a stack of kind of papers to file. And I'm like, well, I actually want to get hands on and kind of learn stuff. And even like when I had those types of conversations, it just kind of stayed the same. But then I was like in the 9 to 5 kind of rut and everything. And yeah, I just kind of stayed there for, year after year for about a period of 4 years or so. About 2 years in, 18 months in, something like that, I did launch my own or my first business. It was January 2015, I think it was. So I launched a t-shirt brand. I wanted to build a t-shirt brand, so I launched it. I was actually ill at the time, and I remember just like being, in bed, and it was like flu or something. And I was like, okay, before I go back to work, I'm gonna start something. So yeah, like that week, I just kind of done a bunch of research and just started to pursue kind of that venture. That then led me down the path of coming across like affiliate marketing. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
That's like 3 months, I think.
Yeah.
Because yeah. didn't work. But
So so anyway, yeah, like so I done that. I did network marketing as well for a bit, and like how I got into that. So the plan wasn't actually to get into that. The plan was I wanted to have a work from home job. One reason because I hated my job so much, and so I actually used to drive around like the long way, so I ended up being there late. That's how much I hated it. And then the second reason was just like in a way to like save on time in that with commute and everything. If I could work from home, I could then build my t-shirt brand and everything from home, have a work from home job. It's all from home. Then I came, and so I actually applied for this one, and it looked like a work from home job, but it actually turned out to be a network marketing opportunity. And I didn't realize that until these box of products arrived at my door one day, and I had an email to say that now I got to go out there and sell them. And I'm like, okay, what have I signed up to? Type of thing. So that's kind of how I got into that. What that did lead me down the path of was more of like this personal growth mindset, etc. Because the people that I was working with at the time we were like, Luke, read these books, and up until that point, like I didn't read, and I was like, I don't read, but I was open minded because I realized like they're more successful than I am. And so, then just started reading the books. The first book the first like personal development type book I read. I was reading a lot more like business books, and that first personal development more-ish kind of book was Tony Robbins one called Awaken the Giant Within, that completely shifted kind of I'd say like whole mindset ultimately. And I was more curious about going down the more personal growth and personal development and mindset. So done that, then created Grow2Gether because I realized I wasn't the only young person, only person in there. So at this time, I was like just turned 20, 21, something like that, who wanted to not go down the more traditional path, wanted to build their own thing, wanted to grow and develop. And so the whole kind of concept with Grow2Gether is to bring those like-minded people together in a community, help support them, and ultimately, we all grow together. So I then launched that.
The name.
Yeah, thank you.
How did you come up with it? I don't know.
So I had the kind of the concept and the idea for it. I think it was 2017, like the October, but we didn't actually launch until 2018, the January. So that kind of time I was doing a lot of like testing and kind of seeing if it would work, and just reaching out to people and just kind of getting their thoughts on it. And so how I thought with the idea, funny story. Anyway, kind of funny story. So I remember just kind of like laying on my bed and was like, just like racking through my brain. I think I was listening to like meditation music in the background, because sometimes that's how I think of good ideas, just kind of like being in like a calmer state in that. And I was just like, okay, really kind of getting to the grips of kind of what I wanted it to be, and then just coming up with names like brain dumping, which is something I usually recommend to people, to get all their thoughts out onto paper. And then, so when I was at my job, my 9-to-5 job, I faced like depression and anxiety because I hated it. There was a bunch of shit going on with like social group and friends and that. So I felt like a really kind of like, so I don't think I was. It's kind of interesting looking back at it. So for me, that was kind of one of my rock bottoms. But even looking at it, even in that moment, I knew that there was so many other people that had it worse than I did. You know what I'm saying? So like,
kind of good though, in a way that you,
right? Yeah.
Like that. The turning point for you was like not as bad as like most people. You have to go like.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, for sure. So like totally like, I couldn't even go into a supermarket without feeling like anxious as shit, ultimately. Like, so the anxiety was quite bad, but I always had the belief that one, I could get out of it. And two, I knew that there was like in the whole world, people who had it way worse than I did, And so that kind of mindset has always stuck with me. And I suppose that's kind of where I'm like, where I talk about gratitude from as well, like that perspective. Yeah. So anyway, so kind of why I'm sharing that is because I went to this like service, I think it is. They do like CBT stuff, and they're called. I think they're on like a local one. They're called Together. I don't know if you've kind of heard of them. So it's like
Yeah.
Together or something.
Yeah.
And so I remember like there was just like a piece of paper, like a letter from them just on my desk, like, or just over, like, yeah. And I was like, looked at it, I was like, huh, Together. And then I was like, huh, so what do I want to create? A community where we all, so I want to create a community where we all learn together. I want to
Yeah.
create a community where we support each other. Oh, I want to create a community where we grow together. And then I kind of seen this letter, and then seeing the Together, because that was kind of their, I don't know if it was their slogan or tagline or part of their name, whatever it was, but I knew. But then that was like where the Together part came from ultimately, and then I just kind of added in the grow bit. So yeah.
So cool. That's interesting. So and then now you have this redefine your 20s. How do you manage, like, I guess, I don't know how to explain this. Okay, I really should plan questions next time. But maybe,
No worries.
because I try to think about how it all relates to action, but then, oh yeah, failures. So how was your journey in terms of like different failures? Because you said, I think you had a few, didn't you? And then how you did like not give up, because like taking action, it's about consistent action. That's kind of most important. So we'd love to hear what you'd have on that.
Yeah, so failures for sure. So failed the t-shirt business, the affiliate marketing, the network marketing. The t-shirt business one, because I was just like super young, naive, and didn't really know what I was doing, if I'm honest. The affiliate marketing and the network marketing, because I didn't believe in the product or the service. So, like, of course, like, if you don't feel good about what you're offering, what you're kind of selling to people, or your product and your service, then like, what the hell are we doing here, type of thing. It's like, feel good about what you're doing, and that's going to come out in everything that you do. Wasn't passionate about it, but I got into it. So I don't necessarily think like I was. It's kind of weird. So I got into it because of the claims and these types of things about how it around like finances and money ultimately, but I never thought like I was chasing the money. It's kind of weird. Like the plan was always, so I'll do that for a little bit, make some money that I can then invest into my t-shirt brand, type of thing. So like,
I guess it's about not working the 9 to 5.
Right, exactly. And I desperately wanted out of that. So this was all still going on while I was in that place as well. And so yeah, done that, and what was the question again? I got in my back.
Failure and like
Failure. Okay, I'm sorry. Failure. So failure. So in a way, like, I failed that because I didn't necessarily build a huge team, or didn't.
Yeah.
So I sold a bunch of stuff, but it wasn't, nothing like, even like a regular 5-figure income or 6 figures or anything like that. It was like just bits here and there.
Yeah.
And then even like with running Grow2Gether and that, of course, there's been failures or things that haven't worked along the way. And I'm huge on reflection. And so through that, I've been able to notice them and then change like the path and the course that we've kind of been on. So there's definitely been failures. I suppose why I haven't kind of gave up and just like, oh, I'll kind of go back to the 9 to 5 or whatever it is, because that isn't an option. You know what I'm saying? So like, I've kind of ruled that option out. Like, there's no way I'm going back into an office-based job in a 9 to 5 in that room. Like, not happening present. It's not happening. So like, in a way, there is no other way. It's kind of this path. So when I left the 9 to 5 job, I did get another like community-based job that's actually is more around from kind of home and everything. It's like part-time, so it was just like in the community where I live, type of thing. So then I could run Grow2Gether on my business around that. And so that was better than like the more 9 to 5 behind a desk in a room type of thing, because one, it's more kind of outside based. It was more kind of like in the community type of thing. And two, it's from home type of thing, so I kind of have more freedom and flexibility, which which when I read the book I mentioned before, the Tony Robbins one, and in there it spoke about life values, the freedom aspect like kept coming up. And so why I'm sharing that is because I realized that freedom was a huge kind of thing that I wanted in my life. And so once I became like really clear on that, and actually once I realized actually I'm having these negative emotions and negative kind of feelings, etc., in the like that 9 to 5 workplaces because I don't have that freedom, you know. Even like within the work, you know, it was very kind of do this, do this, do this. So I had like no creativity, like no freedom with it. And so I think for me, even just like with the life values point of view, when you're aware of kind of like your life values, and you can take action towards that because you know the things that you want to create in your life ultimately.
Yeah, it's interesting. How did your like family, friends think about it when you kind of decided on this like personal development stuff? Because I guess some people aren't really sure about what personal development is and stuff. You know, or were you like super supportive or?
So friends, this is interesting. Friends, the old social group that I used to hang around with is kind of like non-existent. Family are supportive but don't get it.
Yeah.
So that's why, and I've shared a couple of posts recently on this, why I've used this and social media and that to create a more, even like with the Grow2Gether community, to create a more community of like-minded people who are supportive and who do get it, you know? And so like you can always reach out to them. But yeah, like social circle, yeah, that's I kind of forget that type of thing. But no, so with that, so I always say the door's like always open if they want to like, you know, dive more into this world, etc. Like I would help anyone, you know, but they have to help themselves. And so I'm more than happy to kind of help them or anyone, you know, embark on this path. It's just, it's just not something that they're interested in. We're on different paths, and so it took me a long time to kind of realize that. That's a huge part of, you know, my story and journey as well. It was one reason that I did fall into like that anxiety state, depression state as well, because I was like, so I've never been your traditional young person, you know, like clubbing, drinking, all that stuff. But they were. And so when I was kind of here trying to figure out my purpose, you know, and they were out kind of doing all that sort of stuff, I was like questioning myself, right? And so, you know, again, that's a huge reason for why I wanted to create Grow2Gether ultimately.
That's true. Is it also like kind of why you decided to choose like podcasts to focus on?
For sure. And I mean, there was this one experience with, so when I got into like the network marketing, the affiliate marketing, even though and even like the t-shirt brand obviously is something new, so you're excited, you're like, okay, you want to share it with everyone. And so, you know, like obviously I'm going to share it with the people closest to me, obviously I'm going to share it with my friends, etc. And they just ended up laughing at me and was like, you know, not necessarily negative about it, but just like laughing at me for doing it. And so I then realized like, actually this isn't funny, you know, type of thing. Like this is something that I want to do and I'm going to do, like with your support or not. And so I think even from that moment, things like slowly started to go, not necessarily downhill, but there's just started to slowly like drift apart type of thing. Where now I think like the last time kind of we all hang out together was probably so there was a group of like 4 or 5 of us, like kind of, you know, from I don't know 17, 18 comes like to about 2021, to about, you know, 4 or 5 years or something between, anyway, kind of around that time period, like all hang out together, etc. I think so for them from probably about like 2017, like gradually we slowly started to like not spend as much time together until probably like the end of 2018 was the last time we probably all hang out together. Like I see some of them like in the, you know, if I'm walking or kind of, you know, like out and about and that, you know, we always say, hey, like how you doing type of thing, like, you know, so we can have more like that relationship now. So, you know, I think ultimately like we're on different paths. But like I say, like the door's always open. So
it's just, I guess, really understanding what you want and not what other people want, and to really kind of prioritize yourself as opposed to like let other people affect your like true goals and stuff. So yeah, that is. So how about like how you want to kind of, what's your like, how do you see yourself in like 10, 20 years with Grow Together, or like everything what you're doing? It's like dream as well as big as if you
yeah. So for me, Grow Together is the main focus right now. Working on some other stuff with that, and then the dream and the goal has always been to run multiple businesses and different brands and that.
Mm-hmm. All in the development space, or like?
So this is interesting. So I kind of this year done more. So even when I first started, even when like even going back to like 2015 when I was building that t-shirt brand, like even back then, like I always wanted to run multiple businesses and brands around things that I'm interested in and passionate about, etc.
Yeah.
What's kind of happened, especially this year, which is really interesting, like this first 5 months of the year, maybe I've had a bit more time on my hands with everything going on. I haven't kind of been having to like mostly obviously been at home, so kind of save time and so before, if I'd done like a podcast interview and it was like in person, obviously you have like traveling time and that, so I kind of like save time in those weird ways. So I've kind of had that little just pockets here and there, that more self-reflection time ultimately. And we've kind of changed the Grow Together message slightly this year, because for me, what I realized that actually working on my why and working on my North Star, so the ultimate thing I want to accomplish. Yeah. So my why is to help people be better, a better version of themselves, which is a lifelong journey. And so then my North Star, which I've now realized, is to create a more conscious personal growth world. That's how I kind of describe it in my mind and kind of share it. And so now I think even with those kind of plans to build multiple businesses and brands, even with those two things that I've really kind of actually this is it type of thing, they've kind of more got a focus towards those two things. And so yes, they are across a few different industries and everything, but they've all got that sole purpose of creating a more conscious personal growth world. Kind of how this is kind of like how I describe it in my mind, and helping people to become a better version of themselves, right? Helping people to accomplish that ultimate goal. Because whatever way we look at it, that's what I believe in whatever shape or form it looks like, we're all trying to accomplish that, in multiple areas of our lives. And so, this first 5 months of the year, that's what I've been focusing on. And so going back to the point about multiple businesses in there, that's now the focus, is to kind of work on that. And, it's pretty exciting. So, I'm definitely, like you say, you were talking about like 10, 20 years. And so, I'm definitely in this for like the long haul type of thing. But that, that's ultimately it, is to create a more conscious personal growth world through, building community, educational kind of content in that I share, and then through entrepreneurship, building businesses and different brands and that provide services and products, etc., that ultimately helps people to do those two things, or helps people to accomplish the ultimate goal and create that more conscious personal growth world.
That's cool. So I guess for people who aren't exactly like, they haven't had anything in their lives that made them kind of be interested in personal growth and stuff, how important do you think it is to, I mean, what you do is all about that, but like in terms of, I guess, entrepreneurship in general, other things, like how important is personal growth to you? And like what part is most important? Is it gratitude, or is it affirmations or something? What's your like favorite part of personal development that motivates you to do what you do?
Favorite part of personal development. So I think with personal development, personal growth, once you kind of start, in my opinion, like I don't necessarily see there's a way kind of going back, if that makes sense. Like I just think it becomes a part over time, it becomes a part of who you are, and then you just kind of subconsciously do it, right? Like now, even really without thinking about it, every morning I read, at the moment I'm reading this book.
I actually just got that book for my Audible things. I haven't started listening yet, but I actually just got that a few days ago. So
yeah, I'm a few pages in. I don't know if you can see, but so like now that's just like a subconscious thing. Like every morning, meditation, like whatever it is. And so I think my kind of answering your question, my favorite part about personal growth is maybe just that day-to-day kind of thing on becoming better or finding ways in which I can become better. Doesn't mean every day I do. There's some days where I don't, but then it's still that mindset of like, okay, so I didn't do that today, but I can tomorrow. Let's go, And I think that's it. I think it's the journey, right? I think it's the process. I think it's that. Like even with when I was talking about my North Star, like that conscious personal growth road, it's not necessarily about accomplishing that, because just think about it. Like in order to create that world, like in my mind, I'm thinking everyone, so 7.8 billion people practicing and just living like this more personal development, personal growth life where, they have that self-awareness, right? Where they're expressing the gratitude, where they're kind of doing the things that and the practices within personal growth. 7.8 billion people, like, is that really going to happen? But it's not necessarily about doing that. It's about the journey and the process to try to do that. And kind of once I realized that for myself, the journey becomes so much more fun and so much more like amazing, because it's just a weird thing, so that's kind of like the overall North Star, the overall kind of goal. And so I think my favorite thing within personal growth is the journey to try and accomplish that. But even with myself, the journey each day to becoming better. And like I could become better in fitness, but then in, I don't know, in every area of my life, like one day not necessarily become better, and then that one just slips. So it's also about kind of like that in a sense of like, okay, so I'm better in this area, now let's try and get better in this area. So collectively, it's about that journey, about that process. And so I think there's a lot of different things in that, because I think what can happen, I'm guilty of this myself, is that then people, they do really well in fitness, but the relationships kind of suck or whatever. And so then they beat themselves up, and then you have all these different things. And it's like, that's why I think for me, the self-reflection works to kind of go back to the drawing board and actually reflect on what's working, what's not working, so I can keep on track. But like, why I wanted to share that is because I don't want people to then also go into that state of mind where they're beating themselves up, they're judging themselves too much, or they're thinking like they're not doing enough. It's not about any of those things. It's just about you, a human being, growing, even if it's 0.01% collectively over like all the different areas of your life every day, and then that kind of adds up. So I don't want people to like feel pressure or anything. I think maybe that's the challenge with like personal growth, personal development. I think then people compare themselves to others and kind of all these crazy things, when really you just like need to block out what everyone else is doing, just focus on yourself. And like my thing is, if you can go to bed at night and sleep soundly because you've done well today, or because you've tried your best, like that's it, and if you don't, then that's fine. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. We're all only human. Then ask yourself the question, what can I do tomorrow? Like, how can I change this, right? What can I do tomorrow to change this, right? What can I do tomorrow to change this feeling? Because you don't want to live with that feeling, like day in, day out. So then it's about asking yourself, like, what I call like powerful questions, thought-provoking questions, to then get to the solution.
Can you like kind of say, like, I'm interested in like you like to like how do you self-reflect? Like, what kind of questions do you use to like self-reflect and
Um, so it's changed over time. Like, we obviously with growth it's changed. Now, the
Like for
first
someone
question.
starting that never does any reflection on themselves, just like kind of just lives life like just
Mhm.
like go straight. Like, how would you tell them to kind of, what could they do to like kind of pause, reflect, and like go better? I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
So definitely, so the first step would be to schedule that time of like no distractions. I'm focusing on self-reflection from this time to this time. Then the questions really are like, what's working, right? So you want to identify what's working, so then you can do more of that. Because if something's working, like, why wouldn't you dive into that? Then the second question, or something around the second question, is around what's not working. Because if something isn't working, why are you wasting your time and energy? It's not just time, right? It's energy, it's resources on the things that aren't working.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do differently, right? So for me, I'm always thinking like, okay, focus on what's working, eliminate what's not working, and think about different ideas. Becoming creative also, and things that I can try to move me closer towards where I want to be. Just try something new. You know. Um, And I think those basic three questions are things to start with. Then for me, I kind of go a bit deeper in my week. So I may ask something like, what's the biggest challenge I'm facing? Or also, what's the biggest challenge I faced this week? Why have I faced that challenge? Right. Um, and kind of more dive into that. So, next time I face that challenge or a similar challenge, I know how to navigate it a bit better. Yeah. I would then dive into things like, okay, so this week, what have I learned? What have I learned about myself? What have I learned, from the book I just kind of shared with you? Like, what am I learning from life itself? From kind of like, so kind of core things like reading books and that, like active learning. That's what I call it. So what am I learning from my active learning activities? Just like, what am I learning? And then how can I apply what I learned to my life? Because it isn't, there's no point just learning stuff for the sake of learning it. It's like implement it, apply it, take action on it, right?
Yeah.
Whole point of this podcast. So,
Yeah.
I then kind of dive more into those things, and then over like the different areas of kind of life, so like relationships, etc. I kind of dive into that and kind of do a little bit on where I am with in each area type of thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
With, let's just say, fitness, like I may even in that area go, okay, this week this worked quite well within this area, this didn't work so well, and so I kind of go through like an assessment of kind of like each area,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of then go through each, so I know what action steps to take to move forward. So, um, that's my rough kind of reflection thing. But I think for people just getting started, like, I don't want to overwhelm them, so I would just kind of recommend just start with those, maybe like the three first questions. Um, what's working, what isn't working, what you can do differently, and just go from there.
That's interesting. And like, I guess now you're focusing more on like redefine your 20s. How, like, what gave you the idea? Like, did it was like just one day wake up and like, just another podcast? Let's just do it.
So, good question. So for people who don't know what that is, so at Grow2Gether we have created like the Grow2Gether podcast collection, right? So now we have the Grow2Gether podcast that's focused on interviewing our community members, so like presence here, and kind of sharing their story, their experiences, and just giving them that platform to kind of like share their voice ultimately. Then we've launched Redefine Your 20s, and I've actually got I'm going to launch another one in June.
Well, another
But
one.
yes, but
Well, okay, I won't ask if you don't want to.
no, it's fine. So that one's going to be called Unorthodox Perspectives, and pretty much I've got a co-host for that. His name is Leroy. Awesome guy. We've wanted to do something together for a little while now, collaborate in some way. And so for people who kind of don't know, I suppose in a way, like my background and stuff. So last year, from June 2018 to December 2019, I had a podcast that was called Motivational Mentors. That podcast was a collaboration project as well with a guy called Arsenio, American guy living out there in Thailand. And we basically created that podcast. But at the end of last year, he had to leave the show to focus on his stuff. But I wanted to continue because I like the dynamics of having a co-host. It was really quite fun. And so since I've been wanting to do something around that. So that's ultimately what Unorthodox Perspectives is. So we've got Leroy now. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. That one's different. Like, we will bring on guests, but it's more about me and Leroy just having discussions around things within personal growth, society, etc., that may seem to more conventional thinkers to be unconventional, unorthodox, etc. So kind of like out there type of thing, but ultimately, it's our truth type of thing. And so, I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, we have the Grow2Gether podcast collection, the free podcasts. Who knows, kind of in the future, what else will kind of happen. But Redefine Your 20s was, yeah, so in a way, I think I was probably out jogging one day or something, and to like come back, I was like, oh, I got this new idea. Let's try to see if I can implement it somehow. And really, because like that is what Grow2Gether kind of was for, so people in their 20s, young people, to grow together. Like since we've kind of attracted more of a like 24 to 30-year-old type of demo, so a little bit older, but obviously they're still in their 20s and that. But some, even like some are older, like early 30s, etc., which is fine, because anyone's welcome to grow together. That's one of our kind of values and principles in that. But so I wanted to do something where, so I was connecting with a lot of people, and also like a lot of young leaders in that. And my big thing, I suppose, an interest and passion also is using this time, right? So using this, say, like 18 or 17, 18 and your 20s to really discover who you are and find what you want to kind of do in life, right? It's not about, by the time you're 29, having everything figured out, because life is, you're always growing, you're always learning. But what I see so often, and what I just hear, and what I kind of notice, is that people waste their 20s doing dumb shit, right? They get to their early 30s, they have a midlife crisis or a quarter life crisis, they fall into like depression, etc. And then they have these bunch of regrets that they didn't do more in their 20s, maybe because they listened to other people's opinions. They went to uni when they didn't want to. They just studied to become a doctor when they fucking hate being a doctor because they listen to their parents. And it's like, okay, like, let's just take this time for that self-reflection, to listen to it internally of like who you are, etc. And develop who you are as well during this time. So you try a bunch of shit, you find what you like, you find what you're passionate about, and you build around that, or you start from that, rather than just kind of listen to other people's opinions all the time. And so the podcast really is focusing on interviewing young leaders, young people who I believe are doing just that, and really diving into their mindset of like, okay, you're in this personal growth world at this really young age. How did you get here? And what do you think needs to change or needs to happen to help other young people in the masses also embark on this path? Because I've also noticed, even from like my experiences with the friendship group I was talking before, I think from my perspective, people, so I think young people, I kind of think you have like the two types. Collectively, like, they don't necessarily know about personal growth, or like it's a thing, or like what is this thing. And secondly, from the outside, it looks kind of, I think it's got like a stigma. And then I kind of see young people in that, I don't necessarily want to say like laugh about it, but not to take it seriously in a way as well. So ultimately, like, the podcast is there to kind of hopefully do something to kind of change that. and like the podcast suggests, redefine what you do in your 20s. So ultimately, you don't end up having a bunch of regrets when you're 30 or 35 or 40 or even older.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's kind of, yeah, it's very like similar to here, where I want to kind of make this like dreaming big a thing, because I feel like every time, like even me and my friends trying to apply to the best universities, we were told by our teachers to not try, not even do it, because like we have no chance. But we both got in at the end. Well, we both got an offer at the end, and so like, I want to help people like to not be afraid of dreaming big, and by talking more, like opening them up and then talking about what they really are interested about and what they really want to do, and they realize that maybe it's not what they actually planned on doing, and what they planned on doing actually didn't come from their hearts. It came from like what society kind of wants them to do. So yeah, I love that idea, and I think lots of people, everyone needs to listen to that.
Thank you. But even kind of like on that, I think even like within alignment with your podcast as well, like I think quite a lot of young people, I just know it, they may get an idea, they don't act on that idea. They don't take action on that idea because of the judgment from other people, because it's a silly idea. It might be a silly idea, but how do you know if you don't try? And then when you're even like not in your 30s, when you're 85 and you're at home in your rocking chair and you're like, shit, I should have took action on that idea. Like these things happen, you know. I'm a huge fan of Gary Vee, obviously.
Biggest things regret.
And yeah, like he talks about go and hang out in some nursing homes and that, and you'll see the regrets that older people have. Like at that age, you can't do nothing about it, and that's like my whole mindset, even around taking action. You know, is I think about the long term. I think about, you know, if I don't take action on this, am I going to regret this? And even in like 12 months, obviously in 12 months, I can then probably take action on it still, but have I then wasted 12 months when I could take action right now? You know, it doesn't, like, even for me, it doesn't mean I always do, you know, but that way of thinking is always with me, or like 99.9% of the time. Sometimes, even for me, like sometimes I don't take action on different things or different ideas. And so, you know, it then comes back to like that being better thing. But I just think like we need to try more stuff ultimately, and that's what that podcast is about. And just embark on in this personal growth world to get to a place where we don't care about the judgment or other people's opinions, and we just take action and do stuff that we love and enjoy in that. So yeah, that's what that show's all about, really.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we kind of like, I guess like 10 to maybe 30s, like we're the most curious about trying new things. It's finally like school is like not as important, and we not do all these new things, but then we're kind of stuck to like finance, and we just do finance all along. And like, because I have a friend who was like planning on doing finance, and then but she noticed this like opportunity which was about media, but like her mind was like, I'm only going to do finance, but her heart was like, I really want to know what media like studies is about. But she's like, yeah, it's just we need to encourage more about not being afraid to like go and try. I never thought doing podcasts would be that fun, because I love podcasts, I love listening to them, but then I didn't think about what it's like to do them. And then when I realized it's about actually like putting myself out there to reach people and to talk to people that I don't know, and then end up becoming like best friends, and like just kind of practicing just speaking, networking. It's actually just really fun, and like it's also brainwashing myself to like take action and like not care about other people. Like doing that consistently. Sometimes I wonder, like, do you ever get like bored? Because I feel like you do so many all of the time. Do you ever like feel like again this message has come up too many times or something?
Not really. I don't think so, because like I say, when you get to a point where you have that North Star, everything, every action, everything really just, you just kind of base it off that.
Yeah.
You know, So one thing I kind of do want to add, and it kind of plays a little bit into that as well, is I don't necessarily want people to get shiny object syndrome in a sense that they're working on one thing, or they're working on something that they're interested in, but then they see this opportunity over here and they just go for it because it's like where the money is, or because it's where this is. I do want people in their 20s to try a bunch of stuff, and just try and take action on ideas that they have. But I think there's a fine balance between that and then chasing the shiny object syndrome, because that's where you believe the money is, or that's where somebody tells you the money is. Like, oh, I've got this new opportunity. Like, you can make X amount in X days, type of thing. Kind of these claims and that, and so then you leave what you're working on. But I think it in a way kind of comes back to what you said about your friend, right? In her heart, right, deep down, it was the media, but a more rational brain was like finance, probably because finance is more of like a safer option, So I think with all these, even with that, it's about then developing self-awareness, which then for me comes back to starting like the whole journey of personal growth, personal development. So for me, everything comes back to that. Everything comes back to mindset. Everything comes back to developing yourself. And then once you kind of start that journey over time, then you create that, or you kind of become aware of like your why. You become aware of your why. You become aware of like your North Star and what the ultimate thing is you want to accomplish, or the impact you want to leave on the world. But if you never start that journey, like I don't think you're going to necessarily find that. So it's about starting it and taking action on it. And enjoying the journey and the process along the way. Like, if you think about it, I've been doing like total business probably since, I don't know, 20 or something like that. In 19, probably just turning 20. And then really like personal growth, personal development, probably like 2 years, coming up 3 years this year. And it's only been in like the last 5-6 months maybe that actually, like before, I obviously I knew I wanted to create Grow2Gether. I knew kind of like the why and I was aware of it, but I couldn't find the right words to describe it.
Yeah.
But it's been continuing to take action, continuing to keep going, that now I've found the words to describe it. I've created like that North Star, not just for Grow2Gether, but for everything. But I could have gave up like whenever, and I wouldn't have found that. So it's about just keep going, keep going, keep going. So, I wanted to throw that in there, and obviously about, like the shiny object syndrome thing. Like, if it's in your heart and you really, like, deep down want to go out there and pursue it, then do so. I just don't want people to get shiny object syndrome, because it's something that, because then, if even like if they're doing something that it isn't within their heart, but it's taking a little bit longer, like the process is taking longer, and then this shiny object comes along, and it's where the money is, but on this thing they're working on, it was just like 1 or 2 steps away from just hitting, But then they chase the shiny object because that's where they believe the money is. It's like, no, like keep focus on what you were doing. You were nearly there. I think it's a balance. So which then again, I think I'm repeating myself here, but comes back to self-awareness. And it comes back to knowing yourself, which is what I'm really passionate about, to helping young people, people in their 20s, etc. But also like the whole of humanity, if I'm being completely honest, to really discover who they are. Because I think once you discover that, once you discover your life values, your beliefs, your principles, and all these different things, everything just becomes a lot more simpler ultimately, because you intentionally know the things you want in your life.
Yeah, I can completely relate, because I think at the beginning of the year, when I like started to like navigate LinkedIn, I knew I was interested in all this personal growth stuff, mindset stuff, and I knew I really liked people who do like things like impact theory, Lewis Howes. I loved what they do, and I wanted to do the same, but like I can't, I don't know like what, like just I can't find my why clearly. I know what I want to do, but I don't know that why. And like ever since like from meeting you to getting like different opportunities, like on your podcast, and then I met someone else who kind of forced me out of my comfort zone to film a certain video and like do like just find old pictures, which is going to be next week, which is scary, but just like kind of putting myself out there and like talking to people, which I don't normally ever do, and like meeting new friends and like having this idea of the podcast, it's only really recently that it all clicked in like what I want to do in terms of like personal development and stuff, because I realized that personally, like for example, my anorexia, it's just always like taking the first step and then taking 10 steps backwards, and then the first step and then 10 steps. It's just all about taking action to change myself, like change myself for the bad, change myself for the good, just growth and change. And it's all about doing something, so taking action. And so because I talked to Andrew, like he gave you the idea of like action, and just like, because everything starts with a dream, but it doesn't become anything if there's no action. So then it starts with action. And then I was thinking, what if this, like in the future, I'm dreaming crazy, like this could be something like, we have like impact theory university, like growth mindset university, have this like, it starts with action
100%.
academy or something.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I like the name, like it starts with action academy and then just become like in the future the next level. But it's all about based around supporting each other to take action towards what they truly want in like their heart, like if that's change towards improving themselves, getting them out of the dark side how they were feeling, or like just going against what people tell them to do and just following their hearts, just taking action towards it. And like just talking about it just gets me like so excited, and like knowing clearly that the mission is about that just makes me realize just like I know where to go now and like what to do. I just need to, it's just going to be time to work to get there.
So then patience comes in.
Yeah, patience. But like I feel like knowing that why clearly, it's going to make the journey easier, because you just know, and it excites you. So I don't know.
Well, no, it comes back to that thing. I think it's weird kind of how it works. Like, you need to start with action, which this podcast is about, I feel, to discover kind of like who you are and your why and what you want. But I think a lot of people kind of just expect to know their why and what they want without kind of trying. I think it comes back to what I was saying before, without trying stuff. You know, so for me, I try, and I've been on this thing recently, but also when you're trying stuff, you know what you don't want.
That's true. Yeah.
I've been on this thing in the last probably month or so. It's come up multiple times in different conversations that actually maybe what people should do is kind of on this journey is to try a bunch of things and then think about the things that they don't want. Because I think it's easier, and I've been thinking a lot about this, is it easier to know what we don't want than what we do want? So once we figure out what we don't want, so for me, I don't want, I don't know, negativity, right? I don't want complainers or people who just naysayers or all these things, right? So I know what I do. So once I realize that actually I don't want that, then it becomes a lot more easier to focus on what I do want. Whereas I think where a lot of people are like, okay, so what's my purpose? Like, what do I want in my life? Which is fine, and that may work for some. But I just kind of wanted to share that because kind of been in this last month, this kind of thing that actually, for me, like so in my journey, like tried a bunch of shit. I'm very clear on the things like I don't want. So don't want 9 to 5, don't want this, don't want that, don't want this. Which then opens up the path to all the things that I do want. And then those things then become clearer rather than, sitting on the edge of my bed thinking, okay, what do I want in my life? And so I think there might be something in that for people as well. If they think about actually what are the things really that I don't like or I don't want in my life. And then surely the things that you do want is then just the opposite of that. And then if it's the opposite of that, just take massive action towards those things.
That is really cool. Yeah, I think we don't think enough of what we don't want. But then we're also afraid to try. So we're kind of like in limbo in the middle. So I love like this. I think the main takeaway is really we need to. This is a new like kind of theme that we haven't had before in this podcast, which is new, but like all about like self-reflection and the importance of it. So which is like absolutely like really important. Which I guess most of us we just rush through life and don't pause, when that pause can probably change our lives for better.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love that. And like normally I would ask like the guests to like give a challenge to people after, like, to like take action on something. So what would you like kind of advise the listener to do right after this podcast to like improve themselves? Would you say self-reflection or something?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the theme of this podcast, like you say, is around that self-reflection. But why are we doing self-reflection? We're doing self-reflection, in my mind, because we want to discover who we truly are, so we can take action towards the things that we do want. You know, we're doing we're doing reflection, so then we develop more self-awareness again around who we are. So it's like that's the purpose in my mind with the self-reflection. So that would be something that I would share with listeners and people, to take action on, but then like through that process, and even just in life in general, start to I want to say like start to become aware, but I just want people to start to question, I suppose, themselves, not in a bad way, like not if they do something and like question it, like, or with a decision, let's say, but I think like through questioning themselves in a way that will help them to develop more self-awareness around why they're doing the things that they're doing, to then help them to discover who they are.
Mm.
And what I mean by that, I'll just give a bit more clarity and then we'll wrap up.
Fine. I don't really have a limit, but yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'll give you the example I gave earlier of my 9 to 5. So let's say you hate your job, right? Through that self-reflection kind of process, questioning yourself of around the 9 to 5, like, why do you hate going to work at a 9 to 5? For me, it was because multiple different reasons, but like I shared earlier, one of the reasons was around one of my values being freedom. I have no freedom in the job that I was working. So of course, again, it's going to create those emotions and feelings in that. Once I kind of knew that, then everything that I was feeling around that job and around kind of like that place, it just becomes clear because you're much more aware of it. And then when you're aware of it, you can start to change it. I was aware of it. Like, okay, I hate my job. This is why. Now let's change it. Right now, let's move towards. So again, it goes back to the point. I don't want kind of the feeling of feeling stuck or just having to work in one single place. I want that freedom to travel. And so my tip or my kind of challenge for people would be that self-reflection, but it also would be to start to question things that you do in a way that will help you to develop more self-awareness, to know who you are, to know the things that you do want in your life and to know the things that you don't want in your life, so you can move towards the things that you do want. So quite a deep one, but I think through the self-reflection of what's working, what's not working, what you can do differently, and like touch even with that, like try your own questions, right? Come up with your own questions, maybe like 2 or 3 more, and that's just like even with mine, like I just made them up. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no right or wrong here. I just made them up. I was like, so I made them up from actually reflecting, because I was like, okay, what's not working is I'm not implementing as much. So I'm learning a ton, but I'm not implementing kind of all that I'm learning, right? I'm going to include a question around learning, so then I can implement more.
Yeah.
Like that's just in a way, I just think that's how it works. So start with the self-reflection, and then I want to raise people's consciousness to around the actions that they do and just kind of like how they're living their lives, to develop more self-awareness around who they are. Because once you do that, I think that will help you to then, the whole kind of in alignment with this podcast, will help you then start to take action towards the things that you do want. So yeah, that would be my final thoughts on that. And sorry guys for repeating myself.
need to hammer in the message, but I love this one. This one's really interesting because self-reflection is something that I guess I don't do enough of sometimes. But it is recently because of lockdown, I've been thinking a lot more on like what I really want to do, and like yeah, it's been amazing since. So how can people find you? Can you just tell them? Like I'd like, add all the links and stuff to the description.
Awesome. So, if people want to connect with me, they can do. I'm on every platform going, and my username, which is at reallukeburrows. So at reallukeburrows. If people want to check out Grow2Gether, then just go to our website at grow2gethernetwork.com. The 2 is the number 2. So just points that out for people. Don't want you to type out the whole kind of word. So it's just grow2gether. Grow2gethernetwork.com, sorry. And then if you want to connect with Grow2Gether over socials, then just type in Grow2Gether, and we should come up. The little logo, our logo is green and purple. And yeah, you should be able to should be able to find us. But Presence, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, you too.